The night was cold enough to bite through the seams of my coat, the kind of chill that crept into your bones and made every breath sting. I had been driving home from the grocery store, humming softly to myself, when I saw a beat-up sedan parked under the flickering light of a nearly deserted gas station. The car looked out of place, tucked into the shadows as though it were trying to hide. At first I thought nothing of it. People stop at gas stations at all hours, but something made me slow down, something more instinct than logic. The windshield was fogged from the inside, and there was a faint glow of a phone screen illuminating a face I recognized in an instant. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I nearly choked. It was my son, Daniel. I slammed on the brakes and pulled into the lot, gravel crunching under my tires. My pulse roared in my ears as I stepped out, clutching my shopping bags like they were anchors holding me steady. Daniel had not spoken to me for weeks. He was proud, stubborn, and always insisted he was fine, no matter what storm he was hiding. And now here he was, slumped in the driver's seat of a car that had clearly become his shelter. I walked closer, my hands trembling, and that was when I saw them. Two tiny figures curled up in the back seat, wrapped in thin blankets. My grandchildren, their faces pale, their breaths puffing little clouds into the cold air. A wave of nausea crashed over me. My son and his children were living in this car. I tapped on the window, my voice caught between fear and disbelief. Daniel opened the door. He jolted awake, his eyes wild like a man caught in a crime. For a moment he looked at me as if I were a ghost. His lips parted, but no words came out. Slowly, he rolled down the window, the smell of stale air and fast food wrappers wafting out. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracked and raw. "What are you doing here? What am I doing here?" My voice shook with fury and heartbreak. "What are you doing here with my grandchildren in this freezing car?" He swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the back seat where the kids stirred but didn't wake. His jaw clenched. "We're fine. Just between places. It's temporary. Temporary." The words stung like venom. I could see the hollowness in his cheeks, the dark rings under his eyes, the desperation he was trying to hide. I pressed my hand against the window. "Open the doors, right now." For a long moment he hesitated, shame battling with pride on his face. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he unlocked the doors. I opened the back first, my throat tightening as I brushed a strand of hair from my granddaughter's forehead. She stirred and mumbled, "Grandma," in a sleepy voice that nearly shattered me. Double quotes, "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered. "I'm here now." I turned to Daniel, rage bubbling under my sorrow. "You will tell me everything, Daniel." Tonight he ran a hand over his face, exhaustion dripping from every movement. "It's not what it looks like. It looks like you are homeless with your children," I snapped. "And unless you have a better explanation, that is exactly what it is." His shoulders sagged, defeated. He didn't fight back, didn't argue, which told me more than words ever could. "Get your things," I said firmly. "All of you are coming with me." He shook his head quickly. "No, Mom, I can't do that. I don't want to drag you into this." That sentence sent a chill deeper than the night air. "Into what?" He looked away, his jaw working. "Just trust me. It's complicated." I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a sharp whisper. "Daniel, look at your children. They are sleeping in a car in the middle of winter. There is nothing more complicated than that. Now get them up. We are leaving." Tears filled his eyes though he blinked them back. He nodded slowly and began gathering a few bags from the floor of the car, worn backpacks that looked far too small to hold the weight of an entire life. I helped rouse the children, holding their tiny, shivering bodies against me as I carried them to my own car. Each step felt like a betrayal of everything I had believed about my family. How had I not known it had come to this? As we drove away, Daniel sat silent in the passenger seat, staring out the window as though the darkness held answers he couldn't give me. I kept glancing at him, waiting for him to speak, waiting for him to explain, but he remained locked inside his own torment. At home, I tucked the children into my guest room, layering blankets over them until their breathing steadied. They clung to me, even in sleep, as though terrified I might vanish. My chest ached as I kissed their foreheads and whispered promises I prayed I could keep. When I returned to the kitchen, Daniel was waiting at the table, his head in his hands. I set down 2 mugs of coffee and sat opposite him. The silence between us stretched like a wire pulled too tight. "Start talking," I said quietly. He lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me." He exhaled a long, trembling breath. I lost my job 6 months ago. I thought I'd find another quickly, but it didn't happen. The bills piled up. The rent went unpaid. They evicted us. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to see me fail. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to scream. Fail. Daniel, this isn't about pride. This is about survival. You let your children freeze in a car because you couldn't face me. His face crumpled, shame washing over him. I thought I could fix it. I thought if I just worked harder, something would come through. But every door closed. Every application went unanswered. And then, things got worse. I leaned forward. Worse how? He hesitated, his eyes flicking away from mine. I owe money. To people who don't forgive easily. That's why I couldn't come to you. If they knew I was here, they'd come. After you too. A sharp chill coursed through me, colder than the winter night outside. What kind of people? He shook his head. You don't want to know. Oh, but I do, I shot back. Because they are part of this now, whether you like it or not. His lips pressed into a thin line. Mom, please, just let me handle it. I slammed my hand on the table, the sound startling us both. You are not handling it. You are drowning, and you are dragging those children down with you. Whatever mess you are in, it is mine now too. I will not sit by while my grandchildren suffer. For the first time, his eyes filled not just with shame, but with something else. Relief, as though he had been waiting for someone to share the weight, even if it meant confessing his failures. There's more, he whispered. And once I tell you, there's no going back. I met his gaze, my heart pounding with dread and determination. Then tell me, all of it, tonight. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked louder than it ever had before. My son sat across from me, shoulders slumped, hands clenched together like a man holding on to his last thread of hope. His eyes darted from the table to the floor, avoiding mine, but the weight of what he had said pressed between us like a storm waiting to break. I leaned forward, my voice low but firm. Daniel, you brought your children into my house tonight. That means I deserve the truth. Every piece of it. He rubbed his temples and shook his head. I never wanted you to find out this way. Find out what my demand cut through the silence. That you lost your home. That you lost your job. That you nearly froze my grandchildren in a car. Or is there more you have kept hidden? He winced at every word, his shame bare. Finally, he lifted his gaze, his voice cracked, but his confession poured out. I borrowed money from the wrong people. At first, it was just to cover rent for a month. I thought I could pay it back when I found new work, but the work never came. The debt grew. The interest doubled, then tripled. Soon I was drowning, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not climb out. My stomach twisted. Who are these people, Daniel? His face hardened. Men who do not take excuses. Men who make examples out of those who cannot pay. The chill in his words ran down my spine. I had read stories, seen headlines, but I had never thought my own son would be tied to such darkness. What do they want from you now? I pressed. They want their money, he said, his tone flat and heavy. And if I cannot give it, they will take it in other ways. I stared at him, horror spreading through me. Other ways? What does that mean? His fists tightened. It means they will come after me. They will not hesitate to come after my children either. The air thickened, the truth hanging between us like smoke from a fire. I felt my hands grow cold. My son had not only lost his footing in life, he had walked straight into the arms of danger and dragged innocent children with him. I steadied myself, fighting the urge to crumble. Then you have no choice. You are staying here, you and the children, under my roof, where I can keep you safe. His face paled. No, Mom. If they find out we are here, they will not stop. They will come knocking at your door. I will not risk you. You already did, I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. The moment you borrowed from those men, you risked all of us. Now we face this together. For a long while he said nothing, only stared at the dark window as though expecting headlights to appear in the driveway. Finally, his voice dropped to a whisper. You do not understand what they are capable of. Then make me understand, I said. His shoulders trembled as he spoke. One night, a man I know, a friend from work, missed a payment. The next morning, his car was set on fire in his driveway. A week later, he disappeared. Nobody has seen him since. That is who we are dealing with. The images pierced my mind like knives, flames devouring metal, a man vanishing into nothing. My breath came shallow, but my resolve tightened. Then we fight smarter, I said. We do not run. We do not hide. We face this. Daniel shook his head violently. You do not know them, Mom. You cannot fight them. You think I am afraid. My voice rose. You think a mother who has raised a son, buried her husband, and built a life from nothing will cower before criminals. No, if they want a war, they will find me standing in front of you and your children. His eyes glistened, torn between fear and gratitude. He whispered, I never wanted this for you. I reached across the table and gripped his hand. You wanted to protect me. I understand, but it is too late to keep me out. I am already in. The sound of footsteps interrupted us. My granddaughter, rubbing her eyes, shuffled into the kitchen, clutching her teddy bear. Grandma, I am thirsty, she murmured. I lifted her into my arms, kissed her forehead, and poured her a glass of water. As she sipped, I studied her tiny face, innocent and unaware of the storm raging around her. My heart hardened. Whatever shadow threatened this family, it would have to go through me first. Once she padded back to bed, I turned to Daniel. Tell me their names. I want to know exactly who we are dealing with. He hesitated, chewing his lip. Then he muttered, Vincent Marlowe. The name hung heavy in the air. I did not recognize it, but the way Daniel said it chilled me. Is he, I asked, the one who lent me the money? The one who controls half the city in ways most people never see. He has men everywhere. He owns businesses, bars, warehouses. People either fear him or owe him. Sometimes both. Have you seen him? Daniel nodded. Once he wanted to make sure I understood who I was dealing with. He smiled the entire time he explained what happens to those who do not pay. I swallowed hard, trying not to show the fear tightening my chest. How much do you owe him? Daniel's silence was my answer. Daniel, I demanded. How much? 25,000, he whispered. The number struck like a hammer. My hands gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles whitened. That sum was not just impossible for him, it was impossible for most people. I closed my eyes, my mind racing. $25,000 was not a debt, it was a death sentence. You should have come to me sooner, I said, my voice trembling with anger and sorrow. I thought I could shield you, he said, his own voice breaking. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I worked long enough, begged enough, maybe I could chip away at it before they noticed. But they noticed. They always noticed. I stood and paced, my thoughts sharp and quick. This was not just about money. It was about power, control. Men like Vincent thrived on fear, and my son had given him both. I stopped and faced Daniel. Listen to me carefully. Tomorrow, you will take the children to the park. You will act normal. You will give them the childhood they deserve, even if it is only for an hour. While you do that, I will make calls. His eyes widened. What calls? The kind that turn tides, I said. The kind that find weaknesses in men who think they are untouchable. Daniel shook his head again, desperation rising. You cannot involve yourself. If he finds out, he will make you pay. I met his gaze without blinking. Then, let him try. He has no idea who he has provoked. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken fear. Yet beneath it, I saw something in my son's eyes I had not seen in years. Hope. Fragile, trembling, but alive. I reached across the table once more and placed my hand over his. We will not let Vincent Marlowe destroy this family. You made mistakes, Daniel, but you are not alone anymore. Together, we will end this. For the first time that night, a single tear slid down his cheek. He squeezed my hand, whispering, Thank you, Mom. But in the shadows of my heart, a truth echoed louder than any vow. This was only the beginning. Vincent Marlowe was out there, watching, waiting, and he would not let $25,000 slip away quietly. I did not yet know how far I would have to go, how deep into the darkness I would need to step. But one thing was certain. When Vincent came knocking, he would find a grandmother standing in his way. I could not sleep that night. Even with Daniel and the kids finally safe inside, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind pounding with questions. Why would a grown man, my son, be reduced to sleeping in his car with his children? He had once been strong, ambitious, and so full of fire. What storm had beaten him down so far that the only refuge left was 4 wheels and a parking lot? By morning, I had decided I needed answers, not half-truths. I would not let him brush it off with vague lines about betrayal and bad luck. He was my son, and he owed me the truth. The kettle whistled as the smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen. Daniel walked in with dark circles under his eyes, his daughter clinging to his leg, and his son still half asleep on his shoulder. The sight broke me. My grandchildren looked too fragile, too accustomed to chaos. I set cups on the table and forced a steady voice. "Sit down, Daniel. Today you are going to tell me everything. No more hiding." He shifted uncomfortably, lowering his son onto the couch. His shoulders slumped in defeat. For a moment I thought he might refuse, but then he nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. He placed it on the table, with shaking hands. Inside was a bank statement. The numbers burned into my mind the moment I saw them. Transactions drained every corner of his account. Thousands taken in a matter of weeks, large withdrawals, mysterious charges, and then overdraft after overdraft until nothing remained. I looked up at him, my voice trembling. "Who did this to you?" His jaw tightened. "Her, Emily." My stomach twisted. Emily was his wife. The woman I had welcomed into my home, the mother of my grandchildren, the one who had smiled at family dinners and promised she would stand by him forever. Daniel's voice cracked as he spoke. "She drained me, Mom. Every account, every dollar I worked for. She said it was for us, for the kids, but it was lies. She gambled. She partied. She spent it on her brother's debts. I begged her to stop. I begged her to think about our children." She laughed in my face. His hands shook as he gripped the edge of the table. When the eviction notice came, she was gone. She left with a bag of clothes and never looked back. She left me and the kids with nothing. I felt my heart breaking in slow motion. The betrayal was staggering, not just to him, but to all of us. I wanted to scream, to demand how a mother could abandon her children, but the words froze in my throat. Instead, I asked quietly, "Where is she now?" He lifted his eyes, filled with shame. "With him, with the man she claimed was just a friend. They are living in an apartment that she paid for with the last of my money." The air in the room grew heavy. My granddaughter, innocent to the meaning of her father's confession, asked softly, "When is Mommy coming back?" Daniel closed his eyes. Tears slipped on his face as he whispered, "She is not coming back, sweetheart." My chest tightened. That single sentence changed everything. I reached for the little girl and held her close as she began to cry. Her brother stirred awake and looked around in confusion, too young to understand the weight of abandonment. Daniel buried his face in his hands. "I failed them. I failed you. I failed everyone." I slammed my hand on the table, my voice sharper than I had intended. "No, you did not fail them. She did. You fought to keep them safe when you had nothing. That is not failure. That is strength." He looked up at me with eyes swollen from exhaustion and grief. For the first time, I saw a flicker of hope behind the pain. I stood and grabbed my coat. "We are going to fix this. But we will not fix it by hiding or begging. We will confront her." Daniel's head snapped up. "No, Mom, please. You do not know what she is capable of. She will twist everything. She will make me look like the villain. She already told her friends that I was abusive. She poisoned everyone against me." The words stabbed like knives, lies on top of betrayal. My hands shook with fury, but my voice stayed calm. "Then, it is time someone looked her in the eye and saw the truth. If she thinks she can destroy my family, she is mistaken." Daniel tried to protest, but I silenced him with a single look. "I am your mother. Those are my grandchildren. If I do nothing, she wins, and I will not let that happen." The children clung to Daniel's legs as he lowered himself beside them. His fear was palpable, but so was his exhaustion. He had been fighting alone for too long. I leaned across the table, lowering my voice. "Tell me where she lives." He hesitated, then scribbled an address on the back of the statement. My hands closed around the paper like it was a weapon. By afternoon, I was standing outside a sleek apartment building across town. The place was nothing like the broken home Daniel described. This was comfort, bought with stolen money. My fists clenched as I climbed the steps and pressed the buzzer. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Who is it? This is Margaret, Daniel's mother. Open the door." There was a pause. Then the door buzzed. When it opened, Emily stood there with a glass of wine in her hand and a smirk on her lips. Her eyes widened briefly when she saw me, but she recovered quickly, leaning casually against the frame. Well, the ghost herself. I thought you would be too ashamed to show your face after what your son did." The venom in her tone nearly stopped my heart. I had expected guilt, excuses, maybe even denial. But not this, no, but not this. What my son did, I repeated coldly. He worked himself to the bone to provide for you, and you drained him dry. She laughed, a sharp and cruel sound. Please, Daniel is weak. Always has been. He could not handle pressure. So I made choices he was too scared to make. He should be thanking me. The audacity left me stunned. Behind her, a man appeared, tall and broad with a mocking grin. He draped his arm around her shoulders like he owned her. This must be Mommy, he sneered, come to beg for scraps. My blood ran cold. So this was the man she left her children for. A parasite feeding on her betrayal. I steadied myself, meeting her eyes with fire. You can keep your lies, but hear me clearly. You abandoned your children. You stole from their father. You think you are untouchable now, but everything you built on their suffering will collapse. And when it does, I will be standing there to make sure you feel every ounce of pain you caused. Her smile faltered. For the first time, I saw a crack in her armor, but the man tightened his grip, and her smirk returned. We will see about that, she said coldly, before slamming the door in my face. I walked away, my hands trembling. My anger was a fire I could no longer contain. She thought she had one. She thought Daniel was broken beyond repair, but she had underestimated me. That night, as Daniel tucked his children into bed, I swore silently to myself, I would tear apart every lie Emily had spun. I would protect my son and his children, no matter the cost. And I would reveal the truth, piece by piece, until there was nowhere left for her to hide. The morning after confronting Emily, I woke with a steel determination in my chest. The rage from her smug expressions still burned in my mind. My son was sleeping in his car while she sipped wine in a luxury apartment paid for with his sweat. My grandchildren cried for a mother who had chosen greed over love. It was unforgivable. Made breakfast for the children and forced a smile, though my insides felt like shards of glass. Daniel barely touched his food. He stared at the table, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. Daniel, I said firmly, we are not going to let her get away with this. She has stolen your money, but worse, she has poisoned your name. If she spreads lies that you were abusive, it will not just ruin you. It could put your children at risk. We need to fight back. He shook his head. Mom, you do not understand. She knows people. She has friends in high places. She will twist the story until I am the villain and she is the victim. I cannot win. Against her, I slammed my palm on the table. The children jumped, but I lowered my voice quickly. Then I will fight for you. She will not destroy my family. Not while I am alive. He lifted his eyes to mine, searching for strength. Finally, he gave a faint nod. By afternoon, I was sitting in a lawyer's office. The man across from me adjusted his glasses and flipped through the bank statement Daniel had given me. He frowned deeply. This is serious, he said. If your son can prove that his wife drained these accounts without his consent, he has a case. Not just civil, but potentially criminal. But it will not be easy. She will deny everything. She will claim the money was shared, that he agreed. Do you have any proof she was gambling? I shook my head. Not yet. Then, we need witnesses, receipts, anything to show where the money went. Without it, it is just his word against hers. I nodded slowly, determination hardening. I will get proof. The lawyer leaned back. Be careful. If she realizes you are digging into her life, she might strike first. His warning came true faster than I imagined. That evening, a knock rattled the door. I opened it to find a uniformed man holding an envelope. He handed it to me without a word. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were court papers. My breath caught as I scanned the words. Emily was filing for custody. Full custody. She was accusing Daniel of being unfit, unstable, and dangerous. Daniel appeared behind me, his face draining of color as he read over my shoulder. His knees buckled, and he dropped onto the couch as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. She is trying to take them, he whispered hoarsely. She wants to take my children. I gripped the papers tightly. She will not succeed. He buried his face in his hands. You do not know her, Mom. She will lie. She will cry in front of the judge. She will make them believe I am a monster. I sat beside him, forcing my voice to stay steady. Then we will show them who the real monster is. The days that followed were a blur of tension. I became a detective in my own right, combing through records, calling anyone who might know the truth about Emily's spending. I found bar tabs, casino receipts, even photos on social media of her draped in new clothes while Daniel sat in his car with his children. Each piece was another brick in the wall I was building against her lies. But Emily was not sitting still. She began spreading rumors in the community. Old friends of Daniel's stopped calling. Neighbors looked at him with suspicion. At the grocery store, whispers followed us down the aisles. "That is the one who hit his wife," someone muttered within earshot. My blood boiled, but I kept my head high. One night, as I tucked my granddaughter into bed, she asked in a small voice, "Grandma, why is everyone saying Daddy is bad?" Tears filled my eyes, but I forced a calm smile. "Because some people believe lies, my love, but the truth always comes out. Always." She nodded, trusting me, though her little heart was heavy. The real breaking point came a week later. Daniel received a summons. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following month. He sat at the kitchen table staring at the papers as if they were a death sentence. "I cannot do this," he whispered. "She will destroy me in court." I placed my hand firmly on his. "You can, and you will not be alone. I will be there, every step. You are not fighting this battle alone anymore." That night, as I sat in the dark living room after everyone had gone to bed, I thought about everything at stake. If Emily won, she would take those children and raise them in a house built on deceit and selfishness. They would grow up thinking their father was a failure. Worse, they might even come to believe her twisted stories about abuse. I could not let that happen. I would not let that happen. The next morning, I returned to the lawyer with the evidence I had collected. He examined the stack of receipts, photos, and statements, nodding slowly. "This will help," he said. "It shows a pattern, a mother spending money recklessly while the children were left without basic needs. Judges do not like to see children neglected." Relief flickered in my chest, but it was brief. He looked up gravely. "But be prepared. She will not back down. If she feels cornered, she may try something drastic." He was right again. 2 days later, as I drove home from the market, I noticed a car behind me. It followed every turn. My pulse quickened. I pulled into a side street, then back onto the main road, but the car stayed close. Finally, I pulled into my driveway and turned to look. The car stopped for a moment at the curb, and I caught a glimpse of the driver, the man who had wrapped his arm around Emily's shoulders at the apartment. He stared at me with a grin that made my skin crawl before speeding off. Fear stabbed through me, but it quickly hardened into resolve. Emily was not just fighting dirty in court. She was trying to intimidate me. I went inside and locked the doors, my heart racing. Daniel looked up from the couch, concern etched across his face. "What is wrong?" I told him what I had seen. His face paled. "That man is dangerous, Mom. He is not just her boyfriend. He is involved in things, bad things. I think he is the reason she has money now. She is not just gambling anymore. She is tied up with people we should not cross." The words chilled me, but they also clarified everything. This was bigger than betrayal or custody. This was survival. I looked at my son, then at the sleeping children in the next room. "Then we will not just fight her in court. We will expose her. If she is involved with criminals, we will bring it to light. She has chosen her path. Now we will choose ours." Daniel shook his head slowly, fear and admiration mixed in his eyes. "Mom, you are stronger than I ever realized." I squeezed his hand. "I have to be. For you, for them, for the truth." That night, as I lay awake again, I knew the war had only begun. Emily thought she could bury us under lies and fear, but she had underestimated a mother's fury and a grandmother's resolve. I was no longer just protecting Daniel. I was preparing for battle against forces darker than I had ever faced, and I intended to win. Asterisk. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and stale air. I sat beside Daniel, my hands gripping his tightly. His palms were clammy, and his eyes darted nervously around the room. Across the aisle, Emily entered with that same smirk she had worn at the apartment, her arm linked with the man who had followed me in his car. He did not bother to hide his arrogance. He sat with his legs spread wide, staring at us as if we were prey. Emily looked pristine, her hair perfectly styled, her clothes sharp and sophisticated. To the casual observer, she could have been mistaken for a model mother ready to reclaim her children. But I knew the truth beneath the facade. Judge entered, and the room rose. My stomach twisted as we sat again. This was it, the battle for the children's future. Emily's lawyer stood first, smooth as silk. His words were like poison dipped in honey. "Your Honor, My client, Emily Turner, is a dedicated mother who has been cruelly abandoned by her husband. She has suffered abuse, neglect, and financial ruin at his hands. Now she seeks only to protect her children from further harm by securing full custody. Daniel's jaw clenched, but I squeezed his hand before he could react. The lawyer continued, painting a picture so twisted it made me sick. He described Daniel as volatile, irresponsible, even dangerous. He claimed Daniel had squandered money on reckless habits and left his family destitute. Every word was a lie. Then Emily herself took the stand. Her voice quivered perfectly, tears pooling in her eyes on command. She described nights of supposed terror, whispered threats, and bruises she claimed came from Daniel's hands. She pressed a tissue to her face, her performance so convincing that I could see the judge's expression soften. My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to leap from my seat and shout the truth, but I knew I had to wait. Timing was everything. When it was Daniel's turn, he rose slowly, his shoulders heavy with the weight of her accusations. His voice shook at first, but then steadied as he spoke. Your Honor, I never laid a hand on her. I worked long hours to provide for my family. Every dollar I earned went into our accounts. And then, one day, it was gone. She drained it. She abandoned us. I was left with 2 children and no home. That is why we were in the car. Not because I failed them, but because she chose herself over all of us. His words carried truth, but truth alone often struggles against a lie. Emily dabbed her eyes and shook her head as though she were the victim of his cruelty. Our lawyer rose then, laying down the evidence I had gathered. Receipts, photos, bank statements. Each piece was a weapon, slicing through her story. The judge's brow furrowed as he examined them. Mrs. Turner, the lawyer said sharply, how do you explain these casino receipts? Thousands spent over several months. How do you explain these photographs of you on trips with another man, paid for during the same time your children were living out of a car? Emily faltered for the first time, her lips pressed together, her eyes darting to her companion, and the Baki glared at her, as though daring her to slip. She forced a shaky laugh. Those receipts are not mine. Anyone could have used my card. As for the photographs, they are taken out of context. Friends, nothing more. The lawyer pressed harder. Friends who are seated here today with you. Friends who your children say have been living with their mother instead of them. The man in the back stood abruptly, his voice a growl. Watch yourself. The judge's gavel slammed down. Order in the court. Sir, one more outburst and you will be removed. Emily's mask cracked for only a second before she smoothed it over. Her lawyer quickly redirected, trying to regain control, but I could see the tide shifting. The judge was no longer entirely convinced by her tears. Doubt had entered the room. When court recessed for lunch, I followed Daniel into the hallway. His face was pale, his body trembling. Mom, I do not know if this will be enough. She is good at this. Too good. I placed my hands firmly on his shoulders. Listen to me. You spoke the truth. The evidence is in our favor. She can cry and lie, but the truth is stronger. You will not lose your children. Not while I am here. He nodded weakly, trying to believe. As we stepped outside to breathe fresh air, a shadow loomed. The man who had been with Emily approached, his grin wide and cruel. You think you are winning, he sneered. You do not know who you are dealing with. Emily is going to walk out of here with those kids, and you will be left with nothing. I stood firm, meeting his gaze without flinching. You can threaten me all you want, but the truth will win. And when it does, I hope you enjoy the downfall that follows. His grin faded slightly. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You should watch yourself, old woman. Accidents happen. Daniel stepped between us, his fists clenched, fury radiating off him. Stay away from my mother. The man smirked again, then strolled away as though nothing had happened. But the chill he left behind sank deep into my bones. Back in the courtroom, the battle resumed. Emily's lawyer fought to discredit the evidence, claiming it was circumstantial, fabricated, irrelevant. But our lawyer countered every point with precision. Finally, the judge spoke. I will not make a ruling today. Both sides will present further evidence, and the children's welfare will remain paramount. Until then, custody will remain shared. Relief and frustration mixed in my chest. It was not a victory, but it was not defeat either. The war was far from over. As we left the courthouse, Emily caught my eye. Her smirk returned, but there was tension behind it now. She knew her mask had slipped. She knew we were not backing down. Daniel exhaled heavily as we walked to the car. She will come at us harder now. She will not stop until she has destroyed me. I squeezed his hand. Then we will not stop either. She has underestimated both of us. She has underestimated what a mother will do to protect her family. The truth is on our side, and we will bring it to light piece by piece until there is nowhere left for her lies to hide. That night, as I watched my grandchildren sleeping peacefully under my roof, I made another silent vow. Emily had chosen war, but I was prepared for battle. She could play her games, spin her lies, and hide behind dangerous men, but she would not win, not this time. The week after the custody hearing was like walking on cracked glass. Every step felt dangerous, every moment heavy with the possibility of disaster. Daniel tried to keep himself busy with the children, reading to them at night, cooking small meals even when his hands trembled from stress. But I could see the storm building behind his eyes. Emily was not defeated. She was regrouping, sharpening her claws for the next attack. It began with whispers. One morning I went to the grocery store, and two women near the fruit aisle leaned closer when I passed. Their words cut through the air sharp as blades. That is her, Daniel's mother. They say he hit his wife, and she covers for him. I turned, staring them down until they shuffled away, but the damage was done. The poison was spreading through the community. By the time I returned home, Daniel was already sitting on the porch, his head buried in his hands. They fired me, he muttered. The words froze me. What? My boss said it was because of downsizing, but I know the truth. Someone called them. They said I was abusive, unstable. They do not want the scandal tied to their company. I clenched my fists, fury shaking me to the core. Emily's reach was extending further than I imagined. She was not just trying to win in court. She was trying to destroy his life completely. That night, Daniel barely ate. He sat at the table staring at his children, as though he feared it would be the last meal he shared with them. I forced myself to stay strong for all of them, but inside my chest burned with rage. 2 days later, the storm struck again. It was late afternoon when the knock came. Loud, firm, official. I opened the door to find 2 police officers standing there. My stomach dropped. Is Daniel Turner here? One asked. My son stepped into the doorway, pale and shaking. Yes, what is this about? You are under arrest for domestic violence. The words echoed in the air like thunder. My knees nearly buckled. What? That is a lie. He has done nothing. The officers ignored me, stepping forward to place handcuffs on my son. My grandchildren screamed as they clung to his legs, their cries piercing the air. Daniel looked at me with desperation in his eyes. Mom, you have to believe me. I did not touch her. This is her doing. I know, I whispered fiercely. I know the truth. I will fix this. As they led him away, I gathered the children into my arms, their tears soaking my blouse. My granddaughter's voice broke me as she sobbed. Grandma, are they taking Daddy forever? I stroked her hair, fighting back my own tears. No, sweetheart, they are not. We will get him back. When the door closed, silence swallowed the house, heavy and suffocating. My fury reached a level I had never known. Emily had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. She had turned lies into weapons and handed them to the law. I wasted no time. The moment the children were calm enough, I called the lawyer. His voice was grim. This was a calculated move. She likely filed a false report right after the custody hearing. It is not uncommon in cases like this. But if we can prove the allegations are false, it will backfire on her. How do we prove it? I demanded. He sighed. We need witnesses, alibis, any evidence showing he was nowhere near her during the time she claims the abuse happened. Do you know what she is alleging specifically? I did not, but I intended to find out. The next morning, I went to the courthouse to post bail. Daniel walked out with slumped shoulders, his face pale with exhaustion and humiliation. When he saw the children waiting for him in the car, his eyes filled with tears. I cannot take much more. Mom, he whispered as we drove home. She is destroying me piece by piece, and the kids are the ones who will suffer the most. I placed my hand on his. Then we fight harder. She thinks she has cornered us, but she is leaving a trail. Every lie is another crack in her armor. We will expose her. That evening, I decided to confront Emily directly. It was reckless, maybe even dangerous, but I could not sit back while she poisoned everything. I left the children with Daniel and drove to her apartment. When she opened the door, her smile was wide and venomous. "Well, if it is not the warrior grandmother, did you come to beg for mercy?" I stepped forward, my voice low and steady. "You have gone too far. False accusations, police involvement. Do you not care what this does to your own children? She sipped from a glass of wine, unconcerned. "The children will be fine once they are with me. Away from him, away from you. I am only doing what is best for them." My fury flared. Best for them. Leaving them in a car, draining every penny from their father, bringing criminals into their lives. That is not best for anyone. Her smirk widened. "You can scream all you want. The judge believes me. The police believe me. And soon the children will be mine. You are just an old woman, clinging to a broken son. You cannot stop me." Behind her, the man stepped into view. His grin was cold, predatory. "Careful, Margaret. Pushing too hard can make people disappear." I held his gaze, refusing to flinch. "Threaten me all you want, but I will not stop, and when the truth comes out, both of you will answer for what you have done." Emily's eyes narrowed, her mask cracking. For the first time, I saw fear flicker behind her arrogance. She slammed the door in my face, but it was too late. I had seen it. She was not as untouchable as she wanted me to believe. That night, I began my own investigation. I dug into her social media, traced her movements, even contacted an old friend of hers who had turned against her. What I uncovered shook me. Emily's new partner was not just a parasite. He was connected to loan sharks and underground gambling circles. The receipts, the sudden flow of money, the threats, all of it traced back to him. And Emily was tied to it. The pieces clicked into place. She was not just fighting for custody. She was fighting to secure a shield, to keep the children as leverage, to maintain her lifestyle under the protection of innocence. I sat back in my chair, my hands trembling. This was bigger than I thought, but it also meant her downfall would be greater. As I tucked the children in that night, my granddaughter whispered, "Grandma, is Daddy going away again?" I kissed her forehead. "No, my love. Daddy is staying right here. And I promise you, one day soon, you will understand that he was always the one who fought for you." When the house grew quiet, I returned to the kitchen table, spreading out the evidence I had collected, receipts, photos, statements, a map of lies that led straight back to Emily and her dangerous partner. I knew what I had to do. This was no longer just about custody. This was about survival. And if the courts would not see the truth, then I would shine the light myself. Emily thought she had silenced us with lies and police reports. She thought fear would break me, but she had underestimated the fury of a mother and the resolve of a grandmother. The next phase of this war had begun, and I was ready. The evidence on the table stared back at me like a puzzle begging to be solved. Receipts, photos, fragments of conversations I had pieced together. I leaned over them with a determination that felt almost unnatural. My son's life and my grandchildren's future were tangled in this mess, and Emily thought she could pull every string without consequence. She had underestimated me. The next morning, I called our lawyer and laid out everything I had discovered. He listened carefully, but his tone carried caution. "This is useful, Margaret, but it is circumstantial. To sway the court, we need direct proof of her involvement. The receipts tie her partner to crime, but unless we can link her directly to those activities, the judge may dismiss it." I pressed the phone harder to my ear. "Then we need more, and I will find it." After the call, I sat quietly with my tea, staring at the sunlight creeping across the table. My heart ached with the weight of what was coming. I had to step into darker places, places that terrified me, but fear no longer mattered. Love and justice demanded action. That afternoon, I drove across town to a small bar Emily's partner was rumored to frequent. The air reeked of cigarettes and stale beer. Men huddled in corners, their voices low, their eyes sharp. I felt out of place, but I walked in with my chin high, ordering a glass of water as though I belonged there. From the back of the room, I spotted him, the man who had smirked at me in Emily's apartment. He leaned against the wall, his laughter cruel as he counted cash. I clenched my hands around my glass, watching every move. When he stepped outside to smoke, I followed at a distance. The alley behind the bar was damp and shadowed, littered with trash bins. He pulled out his phone, speaking in a voice that carried enough for me to hear. "Yes, the money will be ready. She is desperate, but that works in our favor. The custody case is dragging, but once the kids are with her permanently, she will not hesitate to funnel more. It keeps us clean. My pulse quickened. He was speaking about Emily. I slipped my phone from my pocket, recording every word. She thinks she is playing me, he continued with a chuckle, but she is already in too deep. The debt collectors do not care who pays, as long as someone does. If she wants her pretty little life, she better keep those kids close. They are her bargaining chip. I stopped breathing for a moment, my hand shaking as I held the phone steady. When he turned suddenly, I ducked behind a dumpster, praying the shadows concealed me. After a tense moment, he walked back inside, oblivious to my presence. I hurried back to my car, my body trembling. I had what we needed. Proof of manipulation. Proof that Emily's custody battle was not about love for her children, but about leverage. That night, I shared the recording with Daniel. He sat on the couch, staring at my phone screen as the man's voice filled the room, his fists clenched, his jaw tightened. She is using them as pawns, he said bitterly. She does not care about them at all. I placed my hand on his shoulder, and that is why we will win. The truth is on our side, but we must be careful. If they find out I was there, they might retaliate. For the next few days, I kept the children close. I walked them to school myself, waited outside until the final bell rang. Daniel helped with homework, trying to keep their lives as normal as possible, but a shadow loomed over us. I could feel it. Emily was planning her next move. It came in the form of a knock at the door one evening. When I opened it, Emily stood there, her smile stretched thin, her eyes glittering with venom. "Enjoying your little victory?" she asked sweetly. "I heard the charges against Daniel are being questioned." "How convenient." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so the children would not hear. "You should be careful, Emily. Lies have a way of unraveling." Her smile faltered for a moment, then sharpened again. "You think you are clever, but you do not know who you are dealing with. Walk away, Margaret. Take your son and disappear before this gets worse." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "I am not afraid of you, or of the man hiding behind you. The children deserve better than this circus, and I will fight for them until my last breath." Her mask cracked then, her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes flashing with something darker than anger. She turned sharply and strode away, but I knew that warning was not empty. She was getting desperate. Later that night, Daniel found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the evidence spread across the surface. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, I need to know you are safe. They threatened you. I do not want you caught in the crossfire." I looked up at him, my eyes burning with resolve. "If protecting you and the children means standing in the fire, then that is where I will stand. Do not ask me to step back." For a long moment, he was silent. Then he nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. The following morning, we met with the lawyer again, presenting the recording. His eyebrows lifted as he listened. "This is powerful. It shows intent, manipulation, and it directly ties her custody battle to financial desperation. The court will not ignore this, but we need corroboration. Someone else who can testify to her involvement with this man." I thought of Emily's old friend, the one who had spoken bitterly about her in the past. I reached out, arranging a meeting. In a quiet cafe, the woman arrived nervously, glancing over her shoulder as she sat across from me. "I should not be here," she whispered. "If Emily finds out, she will come after me too." I leaned forward. "I understand your fear, but you know what she is doing. You know the children are in danger with her. Please, help us." Her hands trembled as she stirred her coffee. After a long pause, she nodded. "She bragged to me once, told me she had a man who would make sure she won custody, no matter the cost." She said she did not care if Daniel starved, as long as she got the house and the kids. I walked away from her that day, but I never forgot it. I exhaled in relief. "Would you testify to that in court?" Her lips pressed together. Then, finally she said, "Yes, I cannot stay silent anymore." With her statement and the recording, our case grew stronger. For the first time in months, hope flickered in the darkness, but just as quickly as hope appeared, so did danger. That night, as I tucked the children into bed, I heard a noise outside. A car idled near the curb, its headlights off. My chest tightened. I pulled back the curtain just enough to glimpse a shadowed figure watching the house. Fear rippled through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I locked every door, every window, and kept the phone close. When Daniel returned from a late grocery run, I told him what I had seen. His face hardened. "They are trying to scare us," he said. "But they will not win." I wanted to believe that. But as I lay awake that night, listening to every creak of the house, I knew the battle was far from over. Emily and her partner were cornered, and cornered animals are the most dangerous. The question was no longer if this fight would end, but how much it would cost before the truth finally came to light. The night after I saw the car outside, I barely slept. Every noise set my nerves on edge. The children tossed and turned in their beds, restless without knowing why. Daniel checked the locks 3 times before finally dozing off in the armchair, with a baseball bat leaning against his leg. Morning came, but the tension did not ease. I poured coffee with hands that shook slightly, watching the street through the kitchen window. The car was gone, but the memory of its silent presence remained like a stain. Something was shifting, and I could feel it pressing in from all sides. Around midday, the phone rang. I almost did not answer, but the caller ID displayed our lawyer's name. His voice carried a note of urgency. "Margaret, I have news. The judge has agreed to review the evidence we submitted. The recording, the testimony, all of it. A hearing has been scheduled for next week." My heart raced. "That is good, isn't it?" "Yes," he said cautiously. "But it also means Emily and her partner. No time is running out. They will not take this quietly. Be careful." His warning followed me through the day. Daniel tried to lift the children's spirits by baking cookies with them, but even he carried a heaviness in his step. Every knock on the door, every ring of the phone set us on edge. We were living in a pressure cooker, waiting for something to explode. That evening, as I tucked the children into bed, my granddaughter whispered, "Grandma, why do you look sad?" I brushed her hair back gently. "I am not sad, sweetheart. I am just thinking very hard about how to make sure everything turns out right." She looked up at me with her wide, innocent eyes. "I want Daddy to smile again. He smiles when you are here." Tears pricked my eyes, but I smiled for her sake. "Then, we will make sure Daddy smiles again. I promise." When the house was quiet, Daniel and I sat at the kitchen table, going over the evidence again. He looked exhausted, his face pale, and his shoulders heavy. "Mom, sometimes I wonder if I should just give up. Let her have them. At least then the kids would not have to see all this." I slammed my hand on the table, startling both of us. "Do not ever say that again. Those children need you. They need to know what real love looks like. You are their father, and you are not walking away." His eyes filled with tears, and he nodded. "You are right. I am just so tired." Before I could answer, a loud crash shattered the night. Glass breaking. We froze. Then Daniel leapt from his chair. I ran to the children's room as their cries filled the air. The living room window was shattered, shards glittering on the carpet. A brick lay in the middle of the floor, wrapped in paper. Daniel grabbed it with trembling hands, unwrapping the note. His face darkened as he read, "Back off, or lose everything." I held the children tightly as Daniel paced, his anger barely contained. "She did this, or her partner. They are trying to scare us." I took the note from his hand, my resolve hardening. "Then it means we are close to winning. People only lash out like this when they know they are losing." We called the police, but their response was lukewarm. An officer took a report, glanced around, and left with a shrug. "Could be kids playing pranks," he muttered. My fury nearly boiled over, but I bit my tongue. Arguing would do no good. After the children finally drifted back to sleep, I sat on the porch in the cold night air, staring at the stars. My heart pounded with both fear and determination. If they thought breaking a window would silence me, they were wrong. The next day, I made a decision. I drove to the courthouse and requested a protective order. The clerk raised an eyebrow at my story, but the paperwork was filed. It would not stop Emily's partner from lurking in the shadows, but it would build a legal wall around us, one more piece of armor in this endless battle. When I returned home, I found Daniel on the phone, his voice sharp. "No, I will not quit. Fire me if you want, but I am not abandoning my children." He slammed the phone down, his chest heaving. "They want me gone," he said bitterly. "No job, no income, no stability. That is what she wants to show the court." I crossed the room, placing both hands on his shoulders. "We will survive this. You are more than a paycheck. You are their father. That is worth more than any job." But I knew the struggle was growing heavier by the day. Bills piled up, food costs stretched thin, and the lawyer's fees hung over us like a storm cloud. Emily was squeezing from every angle, hoping we would break. That night, another shadow moved closer. I was putting away dishes when headlights flared through the window. A car slowed in front of the house, then parked across the street. The engine cut off, but no one got out. Daniel joined me at the window, his fists tightening. "They are watching us," he muttered. "Let them watch," I said firmly, though my stomach churned with fear. "They cannot break us." Hours passed. The car remained, a silent predator. In the dark, I stayed awake all night, my eyes fixed on the window, listening to the children's soft breathing in the rooms down the hall. By dawn, the car was gone, but the fear lingered. I knew we could not keep living like this. Something had to change. That afternoon, I returned to the bar where Emily's partner spent his nights. This time, I did not hide. I walked straight to the bartender, meeting his wary eyes. "That man, you serve drinks too. The one with the gambling debts. Do you know who he is dragging into his mess?" The bartender studied me, then leaned closer. "Lady, you should not be asking questions like that. He is dangerous." "I already know that," I said firmly, "but I also know he is using a woman and her children as shields. You want him gone, do not you? He causes trouble for everyone." For a long moment, the bartender was silent. Then he muttered, "You did not hear this from me. He owes money to the wrong people. They are watching him. If your family stays out of it, he will destroy himself soon enough." I left with my heart pounding. It was not the clean solution I wanted, but it was a glimmer of hope. His downfall was coming. I just had to make sure Emily was standing beside him when it happened. When I returned home, Daniel was sitting on the floor with the children, reading them a story. Their laughter filled the room, sweet and fragile. For a moment, the shadows outside felt distant, but as I watched them, I knew the battle was far from over. Emily would not back down until she had lost everything, and her partner was tightening his grip around her throat. The court hearing was approaching, and with it, the chance to finally rip away her mask. But until then, we had to survive the shadows circling us. I kissed my grandchildren goodnight and whispered a silent vow. They would not grow up in fear. They would not be pawns in someone else's game, and as long as I had breath in my body, I would fight to keep them safe. Emily thought she had broken us. She thought fear would drive us to surrender. But she did not understand one thing. A mother and grandmother does not surrender. Not when her family is under attack. The shadows were closing in, but I was ready to walk straight into them, because sometimes the only way to win is to fight fire with fire. The morning of the hearing dawned heavy with tension. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple navy dress and a silver locket my late husband had given me. It rested against my heart like a reminder of strength. Daniel wore a pressed shirt and tie, though his hands trembled as he fastened the buttons. The children stayed with a trusted neighbor, safe from the storm that was about to unfold. As we walked into the courthouse, the air felt colder than outside. Emily was already there, standing with her lawyer and that man who shadowed her every move. She looked polished, her hair perfect, her smile sharp as a blade. When her eyes met mine, they gleamed with malice, as though she already tasted victory. I leaned closer to Daniel. "Remember, the truth is our ally. Do not let her bait you." He nodded, though sweat beaded his forehead. Inside the courtroom, we sat at one table, Emily at the other. The judge entered, a stern woman with piercing eyes that gave nothing away. She called the hearing to order, and the air thickened with unspoken battles. Emily's lawyer began, his voice smooth and theatrical. He painted a picture of Daniel as unstable, violent, incapable of providing a safe home. He spoke of sleepless nights, alleged bruises, and a father who could not be trusted. Emily dabbed her eyes with a tissue, her performance convincing to anyone who did not know her. My blood boiled, but I stayed silent. Our turn would come. When the lawyer finished, the judge turned to our side. Our attorney rose, calm but powerful. He presented Daniel not as a failure, but as a father who had sacrificed everything to protect his children. He spoke of the nights in the car, not as neglect, but as proof of Daniel's refusal to abandon them despite having nothing. He reminded the court that love and commitment outweigh polished appearances. Then he called me to the stand as I walked to the front. My knees felt weak, but my heart was steady. I swore my oath and faced the courtroom. Emily's eyes drilled into me, but I ignored her. "Mrs. Turner," our lawyer began, "can you describe what you found the night you discovered your son and his children?" I nodded. I found them sleeping in his car. My grandchildren curled against each other in the back seat, my son in the driver's seat with nothing but a thin blanket. He had lost everything, but he would not give up his children. That is the truth of who he is. Emily's lawyer objected, but the judge waved him down. I continued, my voice growing stronger. Since that night, I have watched him cook meals, read bedtime stories, and soothe nightmares. He is not perfect, but he is a father who shows up, a father who stays. And everything Emily has accused him of is a lie meant to tear him down. I glanced at Emily then. Her mask did not crack, but her jaw tightened. Next, our lawyer presented the recording I had captured. The man's voice filled the courtroom, speaking of debts, leverage, and Emily's role in securing money through custody. The words cut through the air like knives. Emily's composure faltered for the first time, her eyes darting nervously toward her partner. Murmurs spread across the courtroom. The judge leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Mrs. Turner, is this your partner's voice? Emily stammered. I do not know. I cannot say for certain. The judge was not convinced. Then came the testimony of Emily's former friend. She walked to the stand with visible nerves, but her words were steady. Emily told me she would bleed Daniel dry. She said she did not care if the children suffered, as long as she got the house and the money. That is when I cut ties with her. Gasps rippled through the room. Emily's face flushed crimson, her mask crumbling further. When Daniel took the stand, he spoke quietly but firmly. He admitted his mistakes, his job loss, his struggles, but his voice trembled with sincerity as he spoke of his love for his children. I may not have wealth, he said, but I have love, and I will never let them go hungry or unloved. They are my life. For a moment, the courtroom was silent. The judge studied him with an expression I could not read. Then Emily's lawyer rose again, desperate to salvage her case. He accused Daniel of staging the recording, of manipulating witnesses, of twisting the narrative. He gestured wildly, trying to shift the focus away from Emily's unraveling mask. Finally, the judge called Emily to the stand. She walked with forced confidence, but her eyes flicked nervously toward her partner. Mrs. Turner, the judge said firmly, did you or did you not conspire with this man regarding custody of your children? Emily's smile trembled. No, Your Honor. I only want what is best for my children. The judge raised an eyebrow. And you believe placing them in a car to sleep was best for them? That was Daniel's choice, Emily snapped, her voice sharp. He is irresponsible. He cannot provide for them. I can give them stability. But the cracks were showing. The judge pressed further, referencing the recording and the testimony. Emily's answers grew inconsistent, her voice rising with panic. Finally, her partner lost control. He stood abruptly, shouting, "This is nonsense." She did what she had to do. I told her it was the only way to keep the money flowing. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, murmurs, the bailiff stepping forward. Emily's face went pale as the judge banged her gavel. Order returned, but the damage was done. The mask was gone. The judge's voice cut through the chaos. I have heard enough. This court will not allow children to be used as bargaining chips. Mr. Turner, your custody rights will be preserved. Mrs. Turner, your actions will be reviewed by Child Protective Services until further notice. Visitation will be restricted. Tears streamed down my face as Daniel exhaled in relief. For the first time in months, hope felt real. The children would not be torn from him. Emily sat frozen, her eyes wide with shock. Her partner slumped in his chair, fury burning in his glare. But they were powerless now. The truth had stripped them bare. As we left the courthouse, Daniel squeezed my hand. We are not finished, but this is the first step. Thank you, Mom, for never giving up on me. I looked up at the sky, the weight on my chest finally lifting a little. We fight until the end, Daniel, always. But even as relief washed over me, I knew the battle was not entirely over. Emily's pride had been shattered, her lies exposed, but pride can be dangerous when it festers. She would not vanish quietly, and her partner's glare told me he was not finished either. For now, though, we had won. The children were safe. The truth had spoken louder than lies, and that was enough to carry us forward into whatever came next. The days after the courtroom battle were strange. There was relief in the air, yes, but also a kind of suspended tension, as though we were waiting for the other shoe to drop. Daniel and the children moved into my home full-time. The house, once quiet and filled only with my routines, came alive, with their laughter, their arguments, their toys scattered across the floor. For the first time in years, I felt the house was breathing again, but underneath the warmth, unease still lingered. I caught Daniel staring at the window some nights, as though expecting Emily to appear at the edge of the yard. The children asked about their mother, often, confused by the sudden change. I told them she loved them but needed time to put her life in order. It was the gentlest version of the truth I could manage. Then, one evening, the phone rang. I answered, expecting perhaps the neighbor or a call from the school. Instead, Emily's voice slithered through the line. "You think you've won, don't you?" she hissed, parading your precious little recording, dragging my name through the mud. "But you do not understand me, Margaret. I will not be humiliated. You cannot erase me from their lives." My grip tightened on the phone. "Emily, you did that yourself. The court saw through your lies. What you should be doing now is seeking help, not vengeance." Her laugh was low and cold. "You still think you get to decide what happens, but I am not finished. Tell Daniel this is not over. Tell him I will have what I am owed, one way or another." The line went dead. I stood frozen, the phone heavy. In my hand, my instincts screamed that this was not an empty threat. Emily was cornered, and cornered people strike hardest. I told Daniel about the call, watching his face pale. He clenched his fists, his voice shaking. "She will never stop, will she?" "No," I admitted. "Not until she destroys herself, or someone stops her." That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside the house made me jolt awake. I kept imagining shadows moving past the window, waiting for the storm I knew was coming. It arrived 3 nights later. The children had gone to bed, and Daniel was cleaning up in the kitchen when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. My heart leaped into my throat. I moved to the window, pulling back the curtain. Emily's car sat in the driveway, her partner behind the wheel. They had come together, bold and uninvited. "Daniel?" I whispered sharply. He appeared at my side, his jaw tightening at the sight. "Stay here with the kids," he said. "I will deal with this." "No," I replied firmly. We faced them together. We stepped onto the porch as Emily and her partner got out of the car. The night air was cool, but sweat dampened my palms. Emily's face was twisted with fury, her partner's with smug defiance. "Do you really think a judge's order changes anything?" Emily spat. "Those children are mine. You cannot keep them from me." "They are not pawns for your greed," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the tension in his stance. "You used them to chase money, Emily. The court saw it, everyone saw it. You lost because you chose lies over love." Her partner stepped forward, sneering. "Enough with this noble act. You think you are some kind of hero, but you are nothing. Those kids are leverage, and leverage is valuable. If you will not hand them over, there are other ways to get what we want." Daniel moved closer to me, his body tense. "You will not touch them. You will not come near them again." Emily's eyes flicked between us, desperation creeping into her fury. "Do you think you can erase me from their lives? They are mine, Daniel, mine. I carried them. I raised them. You cannot cut me out. You cut yourself out," I said, quietly, stepping forward. "You chose greed over their safety. You chose lies over love. And tonight, you choose to stand here threatening them instead of showing any remorse. That is not motherhood, Emily. That is destruction." Her face twisted further, as though my words struck a nerve. She turned on her partner. "You promised me this would work. You said we would win." His smile faltered, just slightly. "We still can, if you have the courage to do what it takes." Emily's breath quickened. For a moment, I thought she might step toward me in rage, but instead, she faltered. Doubt flickered across her features, and her partner's grip on her arm tightened. "Do not listen to him, Emily," I said, my voice strong. "Every step you take with him pulls you further from your children. This is your chance to stop, to choose a different path." Her eyes met mine, wide and uncertain. But her partner yanked her closer. "She does not need your lectures. She needs to remember what she stands to gain. Do not forget, Emily. I know everything. Your debts, your secrets. Without me, you are nothing." For the first time, she looked afraid of him, truly afraid. Her body stiffened, her eyes darting to Daniel, then to me, as though realizing too late the trap she had walked into. "This is your end, not ours," Daniel said sharply, stepping forward. "Leave now before you destroy what little you have left." Her partner snarled, his grip tightening, but Emily pulled free suddenly. She backed away from him, her chest heaving. No, I will not be dragged down with you. I made mistakes, but I will not let you own me anymore. The man's face darkened. You think you can turn on me now? After everything I have done for you, He lunged toward her, and instinct propelled me forward. Enough, I shouted, stepping between them. My voice carried the force of years spent protecting my family, of pain sharpened into steel. This ends tonight. You will not lay a hand on her. You will not come near these children again. You are finished. The sound of sirens in the distance cut through the night. Daniel had already called the police when he saw them pull into the driveway, and now their lights flickered against the trees. The man froze, his fury turning to panic. Emily stood trembling, torn between fear and defiance. The officers arrived swiftly, separating them from us. Statements were taken, accusations thrown wildly, but the evidence was clear. The recording, the testimony, and now the threats made at our doorstep. Her partner was taken into custody, shouting curses as he was led away. Emily, shaken and pale, was left standing with the officers. She looked at Daniel, at me, then at the darkened windows where her children slept. Her lips trembled, but no words came. Finally, she turned and allowed the officers to escort her away. The night grew quiet again. Daniel let out a long, shaking breath, sinking onto the porch steps. I sat beside him, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. It is over, I whispered. He shook his head. Not over, but maybe the worst is behind us. We sat in silence, listening to the crickets, the distant hum of the departing patrol car. Inside, the children stirred but did not wake, safe in their beds, unaware of the storm that had nearly swept them away. I reached for Daniel's hand. We will rebuild from here, slowly, but together, and that is what matters. He nodded, his eyes glistening. Together. The house was quiet again when we went inside, but this time the quiet felt different. It was not the silence of fear or waiting, but the calm after a storm, the kind of stillness that promises healing. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that peace was possible. Emily's path was her own to walk now, far from the children she had nearly lost forever. And for us, the road ahead would not be easy, but it would be honest. I tucked the children in again that night, smoothing their hair, kissing their foreheads. Their breathing was steady, their dreams untroubled. As I watched them, I made a vow deep in my heart. Never again would I allow lies, greed, or pride to threaten them. Never again would I stand silent while they were treated as pawns. I had fought for them once, and I would fight again if needed, because family is not just blood. Family is sacrifice, truth, and love. And love, I knew now more than ever, was stronger than any storm.